Hello and welcome to Listen Up, the NSO pre-show talk. I'm your host, Dale Jarvis, and I am delighted to be able to start off today's chat with Kathleen Allan. Kathleen, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
I'm delighted to have you here and to be able to have a chat. We were just having a little chat before we started recording about how you have been in Newfoundland now for a little while, but you haven't been here for living here since you were in a student, I guess.
Yeah, well, since I graduated from Holy Heart. So I went to Vancouver to do my undergraduate, and then I was in the States for a few years, and Toronto and Vancouver, and back to Toronto. And while we still have our place in Toronto, and we'll likely have to go back once things open up, it's been just a joy to be in the fresh air on the coast here since the summer. It's been wonderful.
So tell us a little bit about your experience here putting together the Messiah project.
Yeah, well, I was so excited when Hugh and Mark contacted me over the summer to say, we're still doing this. The concert's been on my books for more than a year. And I had planned to fly in and do this performance in the usual way with a full audience and two shows. And when I heard that the NSO was launching this digital season and we were actually going to be still able to put the piece together, it was really, really exciting. So it's been just sort of a bonus to be as a local here working with the NSO and able to work with the choir for a couple of rehearsals before the week of the show and meet the soloists who are also all local for this production and just make it a little bit more of a longer term project. It was really fun.
So if we can, let's talk a little bit then about what you've been working on and how you've kind of envisioned this project. What's your what are you bringing to this project? What's your spin on it?
Well, thanks. One of the main differences or adaptations that we had to make, unfortunately, was that we weren't able to work with the entire Philharmonic choir of the NSO. There's 90 singers in that group that usually sing Messiah, and I was so excited to work with them. It just wasn't feasible because it's 6 feet apart each singer. The last one would be like way down Military Road somewhere. So we had a discussion, and it was decided that we would have sort of a hand-picked, really small chamber choir of local singers. Everyone knows St. John's has a million fantastic choirs, and that the choral singers here are really strong. So we had, I think it was 21 singers that were chosen and standing that far apart. And so that was one of the main adaptations. Also, the orchestra is a little bit smaller than it would have been. So with that in mind, it actually sort of lends itself to a little bit more of a Baroque chamber approach. And we can do things with a little bit more flexibility and sparkle than what has become a traditional performance of Messiah with potentially hundreds of people on stage, kind of going back to basics, back to its roots, and taking advantage of the opportunity, despite its downfalls, of not being able to work with all those wonderful people, taking advantage of the opportunity to do a little bit more of a kind of period approach.
And so what has that meant for you to be able to work in that way with this project?
I really enjoy working that way. I've worked with Baroque orchestras or period instruments a lot, and I conduct a Baroque specializing choir in Winnipeg called Canzona of 20 professional voices. So it's actually sort of my wheelhouse to be working in this way with smaller forces and really zeroing in on the details. Like the meaning, one of the defining characteristics of the Baroque era is this focus on detail and ornamentation and the like really you can imagine zooming in on like an ornate gold frame and just zooming in, zooming in, zooming in, seeing every little detail be unveiled, and then zooming out and having this magnificent overarching effect. So we were able to get down to those real minutia in a really fun way. We've added tons of trills that you'll hear in the choir. It's not often that a whole choir or whole section of sopranos gets to throw in all these kinds of trills. Tenors and altos get trills too. I think the basses even get a few. Lots of trills in the violins, cellos, everybody gets to have these little ornamental bits. So that's one sort of example of the approach that we're taking, is this sparkly. I think sparkle is the name of the game in this interpretation.
And technical work aside, what's it been like to be home working in this way?
Amazing. I've been spreading the gospel of Newfoundland, since I left, and it's no secret that Newfoundland and Labrador has produced so many artistic talents that have left the province and gone on to have careers, but also that the art scene here is so rich. And I haven't always been able to be on the ground and be a part of that. So it's just so exciting to be home and working with an international caliber of musician, while going to my folks' place for dinner after rehearsal, and it's a real treat, and it just sort of reminds me that no matter where we go in the world, that it's a pretty special place here, and not to be taken for granted.
You referenced your work in Winnipeg, and I know you also do work with the Amadeus Choir in Toronto. How has the pandemic affected your work, in that world? Because you do tend to jet around a bit and work in different places. How have you been dealing with that in that type of professional work?
It's been a huge challenge, a lot of Zoom time, much less playing time, but it's been okay. And both the organizations that I lead, as well as groups that I guest with or work with, everyone has been really trying to view this as an opportunity to rethink the way we do things. Arts organizations everywhere have been trying to up their game in terms of technology for years, but it hasn't been a priority until now. And the NSO is an amazing example that they've created this digital platform for people to be able to view their concerts and listen to their concerts anywhere in the world. Like, we could have done that 10 years ago, maybe not, well, 5 for sure, with the streaming technology that we have. But we're so busy producing concerts and getting stuff set up on the stage for the audience that's in person that it hasn't been a priority. So there's a lot of technological developments that I think will actually last a long time will last for good, because people now expect to be able to attend a concert in St. John's if they're living in Calgary or whatever. So it's been a huge learning curve. I feel like more than a conductor, I've become like a video producer and a grant writer for sure. That's always been the case, but just sort of a different kind of artistic directorship role when it comes to leading an arts organization.
Yeah, I think you're very right. I think it will be very interesting to see what carries forward out of this situation we've been in, because I know, talking with other arts organizations and artists in other disciplines, that some of what we have been doing over the past year, has changed our audience, and we've been able to do a kind of outreach that we, as you said, that we probably could have done, but we were too busy doing other stuff. So it will be interesting to see when we move forward, like what we take with us, what lessons we've learned and carry on. Maybe just in closing, then, what's next for you? What will you be doing in the new year?
Well, I am due to have a baby in a month from yesterday, so
That'll keep you busy. Yeah,
that'll be my primary activity for 2021. There's some exciting developments with the organizations I work with, a couple of guest opportunities that haven't been canceled yet. So we will see. We will see what the future holds. But I'm excited to see kind of where this pandemic leads us. I'm going to take a step back from the driver's seat for a few months and just see what the world looks like in the spring, and where I can fit in, and how I can continue to make music.
Sounds great. And Dale is a lovely name for a boy or a girl. It works perfectly. Thank you for this. It's been a delight to have a chat with you.
Thank you, Dale.
All right, take care. Next, we're in conversation with Maria Lacey, who is our soprano soloist for the performance. Maria, thank you for coming and having a chat, and welcome home.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been incredible being home through this whole experience. So happy to be here.
Yeah, we were just chatting with Kathleen, and she was saying how you kind of grew up in the same neighborhood, and you both went to Holy Heart. So what's it been like, kind of working with her and working with all the team on the production of The Messiah?
It's been amazing. I mean, not only is it my first Messiah here, it's my first Messiah ever. So to be home for that, it just felt incredibly special to be surrounded by the musicians that I grew up admiring, especially Kathleen. She was one of the very first people that I admired growing up. We're pretty close in age, and we were in choir together. And I just remember being so in awe of her composing and conducting at such a young age. And so when I found out she was conducting, and especially the Basilica, because I grew up singing there as well, so it just felt like such a full circle coming home experience. It was wonderful.
So you must have had some amazing experiences in your time away working in opera. Like what stands out for you? Do you have some key memories that you've gained so far?
For sure, yeah. I moved to New York right out of high school in 2011, and have been there ever since. So it's definitely a second home to me at this point. And I think one of the things that I have just found I've been incredibly grateful for and wasn't expecting was how broad the spectrum is of opera there. Like, I've been in productions that are fully staged with, period costumes and full orchestra in lovely theaters. And then I've done productions in little warehouses in Brooklyn with, or living rooms with a handful of musicians, and super updated and modern technology on real life current events. And so I think both experiences are equally valid and awesome. And New York just gives you such an opportunity to stretch as an artist and see, and there's always a community for something going on. You can always find something that speaks to you or something you want to experience or, test out a little bit. And there's always someone doing something that is, resonates with you as an artist. And so I think it's been an amazing way to learn what resonates with me and what speaks to my soul. And so I've been really grateful for those experiences.
And I know New York is a huge place, but like anywhere else, do the Newfoundlanders find each other in New York?
Absolutely. One of my favorite things ever was I went to the premiere of Come From Away, or it was like the preview week, and I had specifically gone because I think it was alumni of MUN were offered tickets, and so my parents and all my siblings are alumni of MUN, so I was able to get in on those tickets. So I went and kind of expected to be on my own or just not really know. And as soon as I walked in there, I saw so many familiar faces. And, we all went to the pub after and had an amazing time. And also there are, even from the very beginning, like Alison Nicholas is another opera singer who went there, and Elena Fraze. And so there's definitely a few of us who have been there and kept in touch throughout this whole thing. So I've been happy to have people to share it with, for sure.
Do you have a favorite role that you've performed in your time in New York?
There's a few, but I would have to say most recently I performed Popea in Monteverdi's. It was my first kind of really early music opera, but it was one of those ones I was saying that was done super updated, modern day. It's one of the first operas ever composed, and yet we set it in modern day. It's done with just a handful of instrumentalists in this kind of old rundown warehouse by a company called Bear Opera, a new company, and they're amazing. And I think that would have to be one of my favorite. It's kind of funny because it's such an old story, but it felt the most relevant and real and raw to me.
We've kind of lived through this tumultuous year, and we're coming up at the end of a new year. We're thinking of new beginnings and new things moving forward. Where would you like to go in the new year and beyond? What's next for you?
Well, of course, I would love, I mean, part of the reason I am doing this career is because I love traveling and I love seeing the world and seeing the world through the eyes of opera. So that's certainly something I hope and I think will come back around soon. But at the same time, this whole experience, coming home and bringing it's brought so many artists home and back to their roots. And as hard as it is and as kind of uncertain as the future is, I feel like it caused a lot of us to really dig deep and find ways to do things independently without kind of the machine of a larger company. So I, of course, have been lucky enough to come back to a place with such a vibrant arts community. And because of the support of Arts NL, I'm going to be doing my own opera here in a couple months, a one-woman opera. So I'm going to be doing that here, which I never thought I would ever be doing. So definitely looking to do more things at home in the future. And that's one big thing that coming home and this whole experience, the pandemic, has opened my eyes to how possible and how supportive people are here of trying new things and so open to ideas and new creative ways of trying things. So hoping to do more things at home, and then also hoping to still go abroad in the future.
Excellent. Well, we'll all be very excited to hear more about your upcoming performance, and it's a delight to be able to have a chat with you and to have you home for this. I think people are always delighted when people do well away and then come back and share their gifts with those of us who are here. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so exciting to come home to people who are so welcoming and just always the most supportive people. And so I hope that they enjoyed this and can feel our joy through it and kind of lift our spirits at this time. So
perfect. Thanks, Maria.
Thank you so much.
Okay. So Doug, welcome to the pre-show talk. It's great to have a resident expert on choral music with us tonight. Can you tell us a little bit about how you've seen the production of the Messiah here in St. John's change over the years?
Oh my, well, it certainly had an interesting life. When the NSO was first trying to find groups to sing with it, we used to work with the university choir, but that had problems with dates always. And so Peter Gardner and I got our heads together and decided, he said, well, why don't we form a choir? He said, our own, which is what we did. And then we could sing out of school times. So basically we started with a choir of about 85, and some of the changes have been the different people who have conducted it and the different things that they have brought with them. It started off with Mario Duchesne, who did the very first one through. Since those times, I did several of them, and we had different emphasis. Sometimes we had even community choirs. A couple of years we had community choirs sing 2 or 3 of the courses with us, actually in the building. Those sorts of things. But we kept aiming for a little more professionalism and all that sort of stuff. I'm just looking on my list here. We had, Douglas Dunsmore, obviously Mark David, and I traded some years. Wayne Riddle conducted, Daniel Taylor conducted, Stephen Kandau conducted, and now we have Kathleen conducting. And with each person to come in and conduct, they have a different view of what Messiah means to them, mm-hmm. and how they can put it out to the audience. So that's certainly been part of the growth. Certainly being able to hold it in one of the most fabulously beautiful places that you could ever have something like this is hugely fortunate. The Basilica is wonderful. We're so lucky to be there. There are stories as to how we ever managed to do it, but I do believe that Mario Duchesne and probably, I don't know, I can't remember who was the pastor then, and there was talk of a bottle of something being discussed and shared over the time. But seriously, how lucky we are to be there. The building has allowed us to grow. Certainly, it's been wonderful. So that's part of the things that have gone to it.
Has it always been in that space since the very beginning?
Every year, we never ever anticipated that it would go on. People would say, "Well, you've been doing this for so long. How long are you going to do it?" And we would say the symphony would look at us, and Peter would look at me, and I would look at, you know, whoever would say, well, when people stop coming, I suppose. And it's been a wonderful journey that people, and it was always our belief that in many ways, this is a very special piece, and that is a very special building, and that even though it is, it's oratorio, but it's sort of not, it's theater at the same time. But we always believed that this time of year might be the very only time that anyone had a brush with that kind of raw spirituality, and Handel has power in the way it presents, and I think that's one of the things that has allowed this phenomenon to grow. That some people come for once every 3 years. Some people come every year. Some people come once in a very, very long time. But we keep having a different crowd show up. Right. It's exciting, that's for sure.
We're in a very different year this year with the pandemic. And I know it's been a very challenging year for artists of all sort. But I'm curious about what this year has meant for choirs and singers. Like what has your experience been since the start of the pandemic?
Well, a lot of my experience has been observing other people struggling to try and make things happen. Mm. If you can imagine a group that exists to sing and to share and to make the sound together, when you divide that group, this is a community event, and when you divide that and you can no longer be together, never mind 6 feet, you can't find a rehearsal place to be, then it is hugely difficult to try and make something happen. And I've been observing, I've had some experience myself too, but that's much less than lots of my compatriots who have had to stop the choir altogether because there's no place to rehearse. Zoom rehearsals and all that sort of thing have helped. There have been many projects that have been actually exciting. Newfoundland has led in a couple of them, actually. Robert Colburn and his high school choir from Holy Heart, they put together an incredibly powerful O Canada that swept the nation. And Kelly Walsh has had Shalloway with 2 or 3 things, but that is an incredible amount of know-how. And boy, you need to have somebody who's operating the things. Average choirs cannot do that. So we have been struggling just to make things work. And in fact, if choirs can get together and sing a little bit, even if they figure out a way on Zoom and every now and then get a place where they can go. In my experience, the barbershoppers, we're going to sing outside. We're going to sing carols outside this weekend coming up. And it'll be fun. We'll be, miles away from each other, but we'll actually be seeing and hearing each other, because the community thing about choir singing is very important. But certainly many of us have been trying to maintain, I'm a church musician, and so we've been trying to maintain some kind of a flow by having direct online, live online from the church. But of course, for many months, churches were closed. So that was from houses. It was like being back in little pods. Maybe that's how churches started in the first place. I don't know. But little pods and putting them all together. So to try and do something that actually comes up with a performance, and now talk about evolvement, to be able to do a Messiah with somebody thinking out of the box and making it happen the way it's going to be happening with Kathleen, and admittedly a smaller group. But that's very exciting. And it's exciting because there is interplay between the people. Choral music without interplay is not choral music, it's solos.
Yeah. And maybe that's a good segue to my final question for you, that idea of interplay, and also kind of balanced against that idea of community. We have such a legacy of music here in the province. And I know you've been involved with so many things in the past 3 decades or so that you've been doing work here. What is it about this place that leads to such a legacy of musical excellence?
I think that without a doubt is a willingness for people to collaborate. In every instance, when in my own experience, when I would reach out and say, hey, would you like to try this? And whether it would be one choir visiting with another or a different group of people, the symphony saying, let's go and work with the university, or let's go and work with this, or let's go and work with that. Almost in every instance, people say, yeah, let's do that. There is a sense that if we all collaborate to make something good for even more people, then it's worthwhile doing. And heaven knows, in this political climate we're living in, we need to grasp onto that even more, because helping each other along is what makes it work. It has never, we've had projects that have been more or less successful, I will admit that, but we have never had projects that fail when people say, let's do it together and let's do it for the good of everybody and let's do it. And it seems to me, with what the symphony is doing this very week and having Kathleen along with the singers and the instrumentalists, that is a collaboration to be celebrated. It's exciting. But that really is what this whole area is all about. I shouldn't necessarily name names, but I will name one. Susan Knight is a huge collaborator, bringing students together and all that sort of thing. And Shalloway was that Kelly now conducts as one of them. But we have all benefited from people saying, yeah, I'll do it. Yes. Would you like to try this? And they say, yes. Well, once that's done, you success will happen.
An important thing, I think, as you point, it's a good time in our political history to remember those things, and it's a good Christmas message, I think, as well.
It is kindness and openness to hear new things. Every time I hear Messiah, I hear something different, and I've heard Messiah a lot of times, and it'll say, and something will trigger you, say, oh, wow, it's timeless.
Perfect. Thanks, Doug. Merry Christmas.
Well, thank you. I hope it was helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you for asking.